How's it going, guys? Frankenstein here again from Millionaire Mindset. A question recently came up, and that was, how do you use the concept of compounding interest to make money? The answer is a simple one, and yet most Americans have no clue what the answer is. I will start this video by first making sure you understand exactly what compounding is, and then we'll discuss how you can make money using this concept. Let's do a simple calculation with and without compound interest. Say you have $1,000 and you get a simple interest of 5% annually on it. So your principal amount is $1,000. The 5% interest you receive will equal $50. Therefore, by the end of first year, you will have $1,000 plus $50, which equals to $1,050. By the end of year 2, you will again receive an interest of $50 because remember, your principal amount is still $1,000 because that's how simple interest works. So by the end of year 2, you will have $1,050 from previous year plus $50 from year 2. That is $1,100. Similarly, by the end of year 3, you will have $1,150. Let's try this with compound interest instead of simple interest. You start with the same $1,000. At 5% interest, you will have $1,150 by the end of year 1. This is where things get interesting. For year 2, the principal amount you use will not be $1,000. Instead, it will be the total amount from the previous year. So your interest will be $1,050 times 5 divided by 100, which equals 52.5 instead of 50 from simple interest. Don't forget that. And the total amount you will have at the end of year 2 will be 1102.5 instead of 1100 from simple interest. Similarly, at the end of year 3, you will have 1157 instead of 1150. Now that might seem like a small change in dollar amount, but if you roll it out through 10, 20, or even 30 years, you will see a huge difference in numbers. Let's try this online calculator. Let's say you have $10,000. You don't make any contributions monthly, and you leave your money alone for 30 years. It's getting a 5% interest, which is compounded daily. At the end of 30 years, your $10,000 would have compounded to just under $45,000. This is called compound interest, or the snowball effect. The snowball effect is a situation in which something increases in size at a faster and faster rate. Try to visualize this picture. This is how compound interest works. It takes time for compounding to take off, but once it takes off, there is no stopping it. Let's try the same calculator with the same numbers, but let's say you make monthly contribution of $200, just for the heck of it. Your investment will be worth just under $212,000. That's the power of compounding combined with monthly contributions. Now, why am I telling you all this, and how can I practically use this concept to make money? Let's take a look at the snowball effect by investing in the stock market. Take Apple for example. Apple pays a dividend of $2.92 every year. If you have 100 shares of Apple in your account, the dividend you receive will be $2.92 times 100, which equals to $292. With the dividends, you buy additional stocks. Let's use a round figure and say one share of Apple costs $170 to buy. So with $292, you can buy 292 divided by 170, which equals to 1.72 shares of Apple. So by the end of year 1, you will have 100 plus 1.72 shares, which equals 101.72 shares of Apple. Repeat this for 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, and so on. In the stock market, this concept is called dividend reinvestment. It is the same concept as compounding. Let's go to an online calculator and look at returns by entering actual values. Say you have 100 shares of a stock priced at $100. The annual dividend paid per share is $5. This dividend is increased 10% every month. And let's assume the stock appreciates about 7% every year. After 30 years of dividend reinvestment, your 100 shares will now be equal to 974 shares, and the value of the entire portfolio will be around $741,000. That, my friend, is the power of compounding. And as you can see, if you do not reinvest these dividends, the value of your portfolio will only be $167,000. That's a huge difference. I've used the same calculator in my other videos as well. It is a very helpful tool to project your future returns and what is practically possible. Play around with the numbers. The values I've used in this calculator are reasonable and not something unrealistic. Here's an image that shows exactly what dividend reinvestment is all about. $10,000 invested in S&P 500, which by the way is the broad market index, in 1960 would be worth about $2.5 million with dividend reinvestment. However, without dividend reinvestment, it would be worth about $460,000. Huge difference. Keep in mind that this would have required zero effort from your end. You put the money and forget about it. Zero effort. In case you're wondering how you reinvest the dividends, your brokerage should have an option similar to this one. What this option means is whatever dividends you receive will be invested back to buy more stocks. Most brokerages offer this option. M1 Finance is the one I prefer for people just starting out, only because it's free. I've done a separate video on brokerage accounts, be sure to check that out. The thing with compounding is that it takes time. For compounding to really take off, you need to give it many years. As you can see in this picture, the earlier you start investing, the easier it is for you to accumulate wealth. If you're in your 20s, don't wait, just start already. If you have kids, teach them about compounding and the importance of starting early. Being patient is the key here, otherwise you will just be like this guy. Don't be this guy, be patient with your investments and always think long term. Think of the end goal. The best example I can give you is that of Warren Buffett. He is the perfect example of how you can achieve big things with small actions that build up over time. He said, and I quote, "My wealth has come from a combination of living in America, some lucky genes, and compound interest." In case you're wondering, here's the formula to calculate compound interest. Most people don't care about this formula or the mathematics behind it. They just use calculators available online, just like the one I showed you earlier. There are plenty of online calculators. Leave a comment and tell me whether you agree or disagree. Are you on track to accumulate wealth? Or have you inherited wealth from your parents or grandparents who have taken this approach? Leave a comment and share your story. Be sure to hit that like button and do not forget to subscribe.